Hi guys. We're going to continue working with the patterns in graphing with quadratics, and I've really tried to split these up. So basically what I'm going to do is do 2 different graphing examples on every one that you're going to see for the next week. So each of these examples, remember, we are trying to think about comparison to the parent function, but I also want to make sure we're spending enough time going over them that I feel like you understand how to set up the table, and then how to graph from that. So we're going to start with this first one. And we're still talking about patterns in quadratic graphing. And this one is going to be part 4. We've done some graphing already, but this week we're going to kind of finish up the end of it, and I'm hoping you'll kind of feel confident in the table making and also feeling comfortable and being able to graph it and comparing it to the parent function. So I'm going to go just like we did before, and I'm going to do one that's on this side and one that's on this side. So I'm going to kind of rotate it as we go to make it easier for you. Now, I do think I will turn this so I can kind of write in it. So this is along the top to make it a little easier. So if you see this one, I've actually turned it. And I'm going to start writing here, and I'm going to use the work area and then turn it before I go to graph. So I'm starting with this one. This one's number 1. Remember, we're only going to do 2 today. And our directions are always the same. Make a table and graph. Now, our equation is going to be y equals negative, parentheses, x plus 2 squared. Now, if you would like, when you start this problem, to add a 1 there, because we assume that 1 is out there whether we write it or not, feel free to do that. Now, we're going to start by making our table, and we're going to start really the way we've been doing it since the beginning. We're going to start and go negative 2 to 2, and see how that does, and see if we need to make any adjustments. And I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to put it here. So y equals negative 1, x plus 2 squared. Now, my job is going to be to take this value for x and plug it in here, one at a time, all the way down the table, just like we were doing before. So negative 1, then negative 2 plus 2 squared. Negative 1 plus 2 squared. Negative 1, 0 plus 2 squared. Negative 1, 1 plus 2 squared. Negative 1, 2 plus 2 squared. Now, really, ultimately, what I'm looking for is I'm looking to see that these all got plugged in. And honestly, I'd rather go through and plug them all in before I solve. So now, in order to solve for these 5 here, we're going to take this part and put it in Desmos, and then this part and put it in Desmos. And we're going to kind of do that same thing all the way down. So if I put the first one in, that's going to give me 0. Then negative 1, negative 4, negative 9, and negative 16. So I know from looking at this, the other ones that I've had some kind of patterning where I had 2 that matched and 2 that matched, that kind of stuff. But because I don't have that, I'm probably going to need to get some more points. So because this is kind of that smaller end right there, I'm going to see if I add a few more points at that end if it helps me. So I'm going to do the kind of the same thing we did before. I'm going to do an X column, except I'm going to do maybe 3 more points that would have come before this. So maybe we'll do -5, -4, and -3 and hope that it works and helps us. Now, I'm going to write more points here just so you remember. And I am still going to take this equation and put it on the top there. So y equals -1 x plus 2 squared. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to plug these in to the spot for x, and I hope we start to see some numbers that repeat. That would be something that would help us. So let's see, -1, -5 plus 2 squared, -1 and -4 plus 2 squared, and -1, -3 plus 2 squared. And then just like we said before, I'm going to take these and plug them in my calculator. So if I plug in the first one, I'm going to get -9. Okay, so look, 2 -9s. Starting to look maybe a little promising. If I do the next one, it's -4. And look, again, something promising. And if I plug in the next one, it's -1. So another that matches and promising. So let's put ours together to get our points. Now, I'm just going to make a big list of them before I graph. So remember, to make your points, you're putting the x value and the y value you get out. So -2, 0, -1, -1, 0, -4, and then I'm going to keep going. So I have -2, 0, -1, -1, 0, -4, 1, -9, 2, -16, and then I'm going to move over and get the 3 points from over here. So I have -5, -9, -4, -4, and -3, -11. Now, I will tell you, out of all the ones we have, this one isn't going to fit. My graph is -10 by -10, or -10 to +10. So it'll fit all the other values, but it won't fit that one. But I'm going to graph the rest. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my paper now at this point, and I'm going to turn it back the way it was so that I can graph. And then I'm going to just kind of check off my points as I do them to make sure I don't do anything crazy. So I have -2, 0. So I did that one. -1, -1, 0, -4. 1, -9. So I've done those 4 that I can do over there. Let's add these. So -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -9, -4, -4, and -3, -1. Now you'll start to see you've got enough of a pattern that you could go over and start to make a graph. So remember, we're trying to look for the pattern. So I did say I was going to do more points at this end. If that didn't work, I would have to go to the other end. So we're just trying to be strategic about what we're doing. Now, remember, if we were talking about the parent function that opens down would have been here. So I can see on this one that it moved 2 to the left. And that's because the 2 was inside the parentheses. So inside the parentheses, it's closer to x. So it shifts on the x-axis, and it's always opposite. So +2 is going to get me -2 that goes over. Okay, let's go to the second example. So I'm switching to the other half of my page. Number this 2. It's still the same directions. So make a table and graph. My equation on this one, though, is y equals negative x minus 2 squared. Now, if you would like to on this one add a 1 here, you're more than welcome to do that, because we assume that there's a 1 out there with that negative sign all along. So now we start to make our table. So we'll start with x. I don't know what just happened there. Let's see if we can draw with just one marker. There we go. And we're going to do negative 2 to 2. And then remember, we're going to take this equation and put it right here. And now I'm going to go through and start plugging in these numbers where the x is at. So negative 1, negative 2 minus 2 squared. Negative 1, negative 1 minus 2 squared. Negative 1, 0 minus 2 squared. Negative 1, 1 minus 2 squared. Negative 1, 2 minus 2 squared. Now, when I'm starting to look at these, now I have everything plugged in. So now my job is to take each one of these pieces and plug it into Desmos to see what I get. So for the first one, when I plug it in, I'm going to get negative 16, negative 9, negative 4, negative 1, and 0. Very much like the last time, I can see that I don't get any of the matching patterns that we did before. Now we know, we kind of tried the end where the 0 was, because I can see like the change is going down, how much it's changing by. So I'm hoping if I add some more points down here, that I'll be able to start to get that pattern. So if I go to that end, that means I want to add a few more x's down here. So if the last one I can see down there is 2, when I start up here, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to add the equation on the top, just like I did with the other ones. And then I'm going to start to go down and plug these numbers in for x. Now that I've got them plugged in, I'm going to take each one of these and plug it into Desmos. So if I plug the first one into Desmos, I would get negative 1, which if I look, I can see a repeat. So thank the Lord, I'm starting to see the pattern. Next one would be negative 4, so I can see the pattern. The next one would be negative 9. So again, I see the pattern. So now we're going to go through and start to get our points written out. Remember to do the points, I put these two together. So negative 2, negative 16, negative 1, negative 9. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make my list. So negative 2, negative 16, negative 1, negative 9, 0, negative 4, 1, -1, and 2, 0. Now if I move to the other table, we're going to start putting these together. So these two, and these two. So 3, -1, 4, -4, and 5, -9. Now, once I get my picture or my points on there, I really want to change the picture's direction. So I'm going to take this and now turn it so I can start to graph those points. And once I graph them, I'm going to do what I did before and kind of check them off. So do remember, this one right here is not going to fit because it's got 16 on that. And these only go -10 to 10. So we'll graph all the rest of them. We're going to hope for the best and that we get a pattern. So -1, -9, 0, -4. So I've done these two. 1, -1, 2, 0. Now I'm going to move over to get these points on. So 3, -1, 4, -4, and 5, -9. Okay, now that I've got enough points, I can see the pattern. I'm going to go through, draw my line through there. Please make sure this should not look like a V, like this. It should have that upside down U shape. Now, if we compared this to the parent function here, this would be moved over 2 spaces. Now, 2 spaces to +2, remember it comes from here. So if it's in here, it's closer to x, it affects the x-axis. So it moves 2 on the x-axis, but it's opposite. So instead of -2, it moves over +2. Okay, we'll keep graphing in the next one.